I tested 5 card making hacks that will help you get even more from your stamps. One of them completely changed the way I create cards, and one will show you a new way to use a supply you probably already have. Today I'll show you exactly which hacks are actually worth your time. And I do need your help with one of them. Something went wrong and I'm hoping you can spot it. I'm so confused. I have been scouring the internet, watching videos from card making geniuses like Simon Hurley, Jennifer McGuire and Lou Collins to find the very best stamping hacks I could find. And I need to know, are they actually worth it for everyday crafters like me? I need to know if these are just for the experts or if they'll work for beginners too. I'll be testing each hack and showing you exactly how it works, and I'll give each one a star rating too, so you know which ones are true game changers. And because ranking things is fun. I've also made cards with some of my favorites so you can see them in action. There is one hack in particular that gave me a stunning result, and I can't wait to show you that one. Starting with hack number 1, and this hack allows you to stamp lighter toned colours on dark cardstock. I'm using a stamp set from Sizzix, and I've chosen this one because there are lots of layers in the stamp design. You do want to start with a stamp that has areas of solid colour within it. For my first impression, I am going to be using the Cloud 9 pigment ink from Lisa Horton Crafts. I need to mention here too that you do need a stamping platform for this hack. The idea here is that we're going to build up the layers of the white ink to allow us to stamp the lighter toned coloured ink over the top. A stamping platform like my Misty here will make that process so much easier. So at this point, I have done 3 layers of my white cloud ink and let that dry. And now I'm adding extra layers of the Picked Raspberry Distress Oxide ink. I've gone ahead and stamped out 2 of the leaf images, and I'll use both of those on a card later on in the video. It was at this point that I wasn't actually convinced that the hack did all that much. The only real way to know for sure is to stamp the stamp without the pigment ink. So this sample is the Distress Oxide directly onto the card. The difference between these 2 samples for me isn't actually that much. I think the image is possibly clearer on this sample. However, what's happened with the colour from the oxide ink? To me, it's nowhere near as bright. So I guess if you are looking for a subtle look, then this works. But I think it's really changed the tone of that Picked Raspberry Distress. Okay, so I do need to be honest here. This hack gets 1 out of 5 stars because for me, it just didn't work. And I don't know why. I'm so confused because in the videos I watched, this worked. And I think I'm doing it the same way. But obviously I'm not. I've missed something and I need to know what it is. So please, card making experts, let me know in the comments below. Have I used the wrong ink? Is it my paper? Please let me know. I've actually been sharing quite a lot on the community tab here recently. And I just realized that if you're not subscribed, you might be missing those posts. So if you love my videos and want to be part of my community here, make sure you press subscribe like a sticker to a scrapbook. That way you won't miss a thing. On to the next hack, and this one I'm calling two-tone stamping. For the best results, choose a stamp that has a large flat area on it. Ideally, a layered stamp set will work perfectly. I've also pulled out my Pink Fresh Studio set of inks. These are great because they are the same colour family, just in several different tones. You need at least 2 colours here that will blend together well, but are quite different in terms of their shade. Stamp your first impression with the stamp the same way that you normally would, using your lightest colour shade. Now, working with a darker shade and a blending brush, you're going to apply ink over sections of the stamp. In this example, I'm going to apply that darker shade just to the bottom section of the flower. I am adding the ink with a blending brush because I do want that really blended soft look. Feel free to add as many layers as you need to get the blend just right. Now, here's another clever hack that you can use when you're using these kind of layered stamps. It can actually be quite tricky to get their exact position right, and you do run the risk of messing up all that work that you've done prior to this step. So what I'm going to do is test my position by stamping onto a sheet of acetate. Using acetate while you're stamping is such a simple idea, but for me, it's a game changer because it takes away all that anxiety when placing stamps. If you make a mistake, no big deal. You can clean off your acetate and start all over again. I am someone who gets really bothered by off-center placement in my stamping. So the acetate allows me to have as many tries as I need to get it perfect. So here is the acetate hack in action. This is stamp layer number 4, and I've already spent quite some time getting to this point. Luckily, I do have my acetate in place and I can clearly see that I aligned the stamp incorrectly. No big problem. All I need to do is clean off my acetate and I can give it another try. Let's see how I do this time. Nailed it. If you are not a confident stamper, just like me, you are going to love the acetate hack. This is exactly how I get professional looking results every time. Okay, so these stunning florals now need coordinating leaves. I am just going to rinse and repeat this process. I'll use 2 shades on the leaf itself and then use the detail part of this stamp in a darker shade again. I don't like to think too much while I'm crafting, so whenever I'm working with layered stamps like these ones, if there are 4 layers, I choose 4 colours. Then simply assign 1 colour to each of those layers. I do also have a couple of sizes of blending brushes, and I find that the smaller ones are much better for working with on smaller stamps. It's time to add in my acetate, and then I will position the detailed part of the stamp and give this positioning a test run. I'm really hoping I can get this one perfect the first time. It looks good, so I can remove my acetate now and stamp directly onto my image. And here's a close-up look of the end result. I give this hack 5 out of 5 stars. I love how this turned out, and I think that gradient effect is really, really pretty. This is a great way to add extra detail into those layering stamps that you have, or any simple stamp that has a large flat area in it. It's a really lovely effect, and I hope that you'll give it a try. Have you noticed that all of the hacks I've shared today have been achieved by using a stamping platform? The Misty is my platform of choice, and I'll be sure to link it below along with all of the other supplies I'm using in today's video. If you are looking for a stamping platform, be sure to also watch my cheap versus expensive video. In that video, I did test a cheap and expensive stamping platform, and the results were quite surprising. So be sure to watch that next. Jumping right on into the next hack. For this one, you'll need some watercolor cardstock, Distress Oxide ink, and VersaFine Clear pigment ink. The first thing you'll want to do is add a spritz of water to your cardstock. You want to give it a moment here to soak in. So while it's doing that, I'll ink up my stamp. You can actually use any stamp you like for this technique. Next, add a spritz of water to the stamp and then stamp the image onto your paper. You should be left with a stunning watercolor effect. But if this happens, you can always add a spritz more water to get the ink moving. You'll actually have far more control if you use less water to begin with, because of course you can always add more. Now you could just leave this to dry, but I'm in a hurry today, so I am going to use my heat gun. It is very, very important that this background piece is 100% dry before going on to the next step. You're now going to restamp the image using the VersaFine Clear ink. Before I get to that, I do want to experiment here with a tone on tone look. So I want to stamp down onto this dry surface one more impression of the Distress Oxide. Isn't that pretty? I love the tone on tone option. So of course you can leave that just as it is, but I do want a bit more contrast for my card base. So I am going to do just one stamp of the VersaFine Clear in black. I'll be creating with this panel today. I give this hack 5 out of 5 stars, and it's actually my favorite of all the hacks I've tried so far. I love the simplicity of this one. It gives you that watercolor, dreamy mixed media look without the mixed media anxiety that I get. I just had to make a card with this technique, and I'll show you it along with all the other cards I've made later on in the video. For this next hack, you'll need some watercolor brush pens. I'm using these from Ohuhu, but any brand will work. Choose a stamp with a good amount of detail in it, and you'll want the lines to be slightly on the thicker side rather than super fine. For this test, I did use the Nina Solar White cardstock, but if I could do this again, I would possibly experiment with Simon Hurley's watercolor card as well. Now, this next step does take a little bit of time because what you want to do is actually color in the image. I prefer to work colour by colour, and there is no rush. The ink here can dry on the stamp and it will not affect anything. This is my very first attempt, so I've kept the colouring really, really simple here. I've just used one colour for each type of flower and then one flat colour for the leaves. Once I'm happy with that, I will add spritzes of water to the stamp, and what you'll see is that ink starts to bead. What you'll be left with is a beautiful watercoloured image. And there is a way to take this to the next level. I will share that here in just a moment. First up though, I wanted to do a second impression of that same stamp. So if you want something really, really subtle, you can do that. And then once you're confident with basic colouring, the sky's the limit. You can use as many different shades and gradients of colours on the stamp. And what you can do is blend them together so that you can get, say, pink and purple flowers rather than just one solid colour for your flower. I have spent a little more time colouring in the florals, and to add interest, I've used a few more colours. The end result is a lot more detailed, even though you can't really see it here on camera. This hack gets 4 out of 5 stars, and it's really fun to do. The multicolour effect really is gorgeous, and there's something that's so satisfying about colouring in the stamp almost like it's a mini artwork before you stamp it. I love that you can take your time with this. There's no rushing through the process because it's not until you spritz the stamp with water that ink gets activated and ready to be stamped. This is a great hack to try if you already have watercolors. Note that it only works with a water-based marker, but it's really, really fun. It only lost a point because there is a little bit of trial and error involved, especially when choosing your colours and getting those blended colour effects. Let me know in the comments, which hack are you going to try first? And if you have a stamping trick that you've been using that I haven't shared today, please share that too. You are all so clever. I love hearing your thoughts and ideas, and I learn so much from your comments. I do read every single one of them. I do think it's time to see all of the hacks in action, so let me share with you all of the cards I've made. This first card is the light ink on dark cardstock, and these are the 2 leaves I created. I've used them as a base for my floral cluster. I've created the florals with some dies from Spellbinders and then just layered them all up. This sentiment is also a die, and I'll be sure to link that one. This next card is the 2-tone stamping. So I have stamped out a bunch of those peony and leaf images and then Fussy cut them all out. I've layered them all up and added them to a base, which is just a simple embossing folder, and then added in a die sentiment. I've then added in this vintage ribbon from my stash, and I think it's the perfect finishing touch. This next card is the double stamping on watercolor paper, where I used the Distress Oxide in the background and then stamped on top with VersaFine Clear ink. I have then actually gone ahead with alcohol markers and highlighted just areas of that background stamp. I've added in a sentiment die here and some really pretty gems. I really love how this one turned out. I love the dark contrast of the cardstock that I added in here too. This next card is the one I created using the stamping with water-based markers idea. I hope you can see the gradient of the colors in the flowers a little clearer here. It is really soft and delicate and pretty, and I love the look of this. I did fussy cut out the stamped image, added it to an embossing folder background, and then a pop of color with my cardstock and another sentiment die to finish. Here are all the cards. I really do love how all of these turned out, and I now have a bunch of new ideas that I can add to my projects. If you loved these hacks and want to learn even more card making tips and tricks, be sure to watch this video next. I'll see you again really soon. Until then, bye.